What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Welcome to another episode of the Candid Couch.
Yo, what's up?
This is a weekly podcast where we talk about any and everything, and we are here for another week with a really, really good conversation. We got a great topic coming up, and we're just going to get right into it. Let's go ahead and get started with our question of the day.
All right, we here for the question of the day now. What was one misconception that you had about marriage before you got married?
You want me to go first?
Yes, I do.
One misconception that I had about marriage before getting into it was that it would be some type of like continuation of dating. Like whatever we were or whoever we were or however things were when we were engaged, when we were dating, it was going to continue and into the marriage, like spill over. But in reality, what actually happened is you start over because you're not dating anymore. You're not engaged anymore. I'm not living with my parents. You're not living with your parents. Like I can't go home when we get into an argument. I can't get away from you. And we were long distance. So now being married and being under the same roof, that was a huge misconception that everything would just stay the same. So like whatever we were as a couple, I was thinking like, oh man, like this is how our marriage is going to be. And it wasn't. It wasn't how our marriage was in the beginning. It was something that we had to continue to put work into. Having not been married before, either one of us, it's our first try on coming together, like cohabitating, living together, figuring out our healing process from trauma, and then trying to figure out how to navigate marriage. It's a lot of pressure at first. So I think one of my biggest misconceptions was that it was just going to continue to be the way it was when we were dating.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, that's a good point right there. I guess I kind of felt that way as well. But one misconception I had was that I guess you get these ideas of marriage like when you watch TV or if you watch like sitcoms. It's like, oh, the wife has her role to do these things and the man has his role to do these things. I guess my misconception was that coming in, not saying you didn't do these things because you did, but like, expecting a hot meal on the table every night. And you did do that. You did cook almost every night. And I think we both kind of was like trying to feel like the stereotypical what do you call it, gender roles. But obviously every marriage is different, so that I think we had another episode about gender roles. If you guys want to hear more about that, go check that episode out, by the way. It's a little plug. But yeah, I think one of my misconceptions was the fact that everything would be like smooth sailing at first, like even though we're two different people coming together. I didn't really, in my mind in the beginning, I didn't think it would be conflict. I didn't think it would be like an issue. This is a happy time, a union. We're coming together. I'm thinking, this is gonna be all cool. But as you mix two people together, it's always gonna be conflict, and that was a little uncomfortable for me. But not saying,
Same.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it at the beginning of our marriage, but at the same time, there was some conflict that was uncomfortable, obviously, but yeah, I just had like the misconception that it was gonna be like the TV shows, like the movies, like I'm the man, you the woman, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I guess.
I think the idea of marriage versus the reality of marriage are two very different things. And I think for me, I think the reality of marriage sort of hit me in my chest maybe around week 2. I think around 2 weeks of being married, like the reality finally hit. And it was like, oh man, like this is real. This is not like the movies. This is kind of tough. And that was only 2 weeks in. So I think that it hits you pretty quickly, depending on like what your actual struggles are. Another misconception, and I'll be quick with this, is that I thought that, and our therapist actually was like, what? But one of my misconceptions was I thought that all the issues that we had when we were dating would sort of like work themselves out, and it would be like, oh, well, I'm your wife now, so this is not an issue anymore, right? Or I'm your wife now, you're my husband now, so why are we still, that's over, right? That issue or that problem is over now, right? Like, we're married. And it wasn't like that. It was literally like whatever issue that we had in dating was actually bigger in marriage. It actually like it magnified it created more issues, and then it also built on the issues that we already had, because now we're trying to figure out so many things together, living under the same roof, having to communicate things that maybe we didn't have to communicate before. So I think the reality of it is very different than the idea of it.
Right. I think another thing is the fact that you mentioned something I wanted to touch on. I think it was dang, what was the last part you said? I wanted to say something.
What part?
The last thing you mentioned. Oh, the dating part. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, so I feel like when you're dating, we typically have our representative, at the top, you know, displaying and
Best
best
qualities.
qualities and talking and all that stuff. I think our representative is being shown at that time. So when you get married, as you may still have that representative showing, but over time, your wife or your husband gonna start seeing the cracks and seeing the real you, the messy you, the one that do certain things that get on your spouse's nerves, or like things you wasn't really displaying in the dating phase. So when you get married, it's like the real you start coming out. So, and then that's another thing that can cause conflict, and something you would need to work on to get better. But we all go through it in the beginning, but as you stick through it, things get better.
All right, so let us know what you guys think in the comments. If you're married or aspiring to be married, let us know what you think. Whether you had experience with newlywed, whether you were in a honeymoon phase, let us know what your experience was and hit us up in the comments. So our topic of the day is actually newlywed slash honeymoon phase. We're going to be talking all things beginning phases of marriage. This is something that I guess we're currently still going through this. I don't know how long newlywed phase slash honeymoon phase lasts. I guess it depends. I don't know. But we are on year 4, so we're still very much in the beginning. So yeah, we're going to be talking all things beginning phases of marriage. So what are some of the things that I guess you learned so far in our 4 years in our journey from beginning to now?
I would say for one thing, communication. Us going to therapy really helped in that area, and talking through things. Because in the beginning, I know there were times when we would like want to kind of go leave the house, or not want to discuss things. But I think we've gotten better. I think we've gotten more sensitive to each other's, I guess, feelings about things. Like you will say something, I feel this way, and in the past, I'll be like, I don't really see your perspective, and vice versa. But now we kind of try to see each other's perspective, and try to get a better understanding so we can kind of move forward. Um, Let me think. Another phase would probably be, I would say, kind of getting out of that single mindset. And there are times that where it will still pop up sometimes.
That's a big one.
Um,
That's actually really hard to do.
yeah, it is. I mean, getting out of that single mindset where you still do things as if you're single, in the sense of like not really thinking about the other person really. And I heard this thing where it's like you the years of marriage you are in is kind of similar to like a person growing. Like if you 1 year of marriage, think of that as like a 1 year old. How 1 year olds communicate, how they do things. You got a 3 year old. That's how many years you've been married. As you grow in your marriage, it's kind of similar to like a kid growing up. Like if you got 15
Like
years,
aging.
like aging exactly. So you got 15 years of marriage. Usually you're gonna have some maturity, but at the same time, there's gonna be still some immature things going on, possibly even at 15 years. I believe, like I'm like we're still 4 years in, but I believe around the 20-year mark, maybe we start getting real good at this thing, probably. But because I think it takes a long time to gel two personalities together and kind of like know how to maneuver with different aspects of each other's personality. I mean, that's like a lifelong journey, I think. What do you think?
I think it's a lifelong journey, mostly because you change. So, like, I feel that who I was in the first year of our marriage, I was not that person in the second year. Who I was in the second year, I was not that person in the third year. I was pregnant for the majority of our third year of marriage. And now in our fourth year of marriage, we're parents. So in our fourth year of marriage, we are very, very different people than in our first year of marriage. We like different things. We speak differently, we think differently. Even our mannerisms have changed in some aspects. What we thought was fun before may not be fun now. What we thought wasn't fun before may be fun now. Like, a lot of things change about your personality. And I think that's the sort of mysterious part about marriage, is that you're consistently changing. Your partner is constantly changing. And I think that that's sort of the roughest part of commitment, is to commit to versions of a person that you haven't seen yet. I don't know what this person will look like as a parent because we haven't had kids yet. I don't know what this person will look like when we don't have any money because we're financially stable right now. These are things you think of in the first year or the first couple of months of marriage. Is like, this version of this person that I know is the person I committed to. But what about the person 10 years from now? What about the person 4 years from now when they go through a really tough depression? What about when loss starts to happen? What is that person like when they're grieving? These are things that, come in marriage and come with life. And that's why they're supposed to be your life partner, because your marriage and the health of your marriage can only grow if you are able to navigate life's transitions. Because two things are true at the same time: nothing stays the same and everything is always changing. So you may be comfortable with something right now, but that may change. Like, right now we're in our first year of parenting, going on our second year of parenting. Our relationship is very different now than when we were just dating. Our relationship is very different now than when we first got married. So we have to navigate date nights. We have to navigate finding time for intimacy. We have to navigate finding time to have the tough conversations when there's a baby crying and there's a dog crying to go outside to pee. We have to navigate those things after a really stressful day at work, and we still want to make ourselves available for our partner. So you're consistently growing and changing, and that takes patience. That takes patience to be able to deal with. And I can tell you right now, if God Himself lined up all of His children from most patient to least patient, I am probably one of the most impatient people that you will meet. And I can admit that. I can fully admit I am one of the most impatient people you will meet. And that's in every aspect of my life. I am still working on trying to master having patience. So the first year of our marriage was extremely frustrating to me because I was expecting to see things that had not even yet been discussed. I had what's it called when you have an expectation?
Expectations.
What's it called though when you don't express it? Um
Passive.
no, no, no. There's a phrase, it's oh, unspoken. I had an unspoken expectation of this is what marriage looks like. And the thing is, you form ideas of marriage based on what you saw. So if you take a couple and the woman has seen romance, the woman has seen fun in her parents' marriage. The woman has seen, her parents making time for each other and dancing in the living room or having candlelight dinners and giggling and play fighting and pillow fighting. You see those things, and that sort of becomes your preference. And you go get with a guy, maybe the guy didn't see marriage at all. Maybe the guy didn't have an example of marriage at all. You put those two people together, she has an expectation. He also has an expectation, but they're not spoken. So you build resentment based on something that was never spoken in the first place.
Exactly. And I want to hit on that as well. Like you just mentioned, you growing up, it's about what you see when you're a child. You said when you were growing up, your parents were together. Obviously, they're still together, still married. How long they been together now? Like 50 years or something like
I
that?
think they're celebrating 40 years this year. So that's, whew, my God, that's major.
Yeah, it is. I think that the fact of you having that example growing up, and for me, I really didn't have that. I'm a product of divorce, so I don't even remember like my parents like being married. Like the only thing I remember about my parents being married maybe was when I was like 8, and it was like Christmas or something like that. And it was a picture or something. It's a long time ago, but I think that being a product of that and having all the things that come with that, and people who are a product of divorce, they know what comes with that. Um, I think when you grow up and you lack certain things or whatnot, And when you go up and you know in a relationship with someone else and they have expectations from what they saw, like, hey, my dad did this, my mom and dad did this together, they were this, that, and or whatnot. And for me, I'm like, well, my parents weren't really together, so I don't really have an example of that. So for me, I'm like, I got to try to figure this out. And again, with you not having the patience to kind of, have the patience to kind of work with it a little bit in the
It's a
beginning.
lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure, and the fact that there were times you did give me some grace in the beginning, even though the patience wasn't there. But I can honestly say, as the years have gone, like your patience have definitely grown. You've gotten stronger in that area. So I really do appreciate the work you did to put in to get to that point. But in the beginning, I'm telling you, man, it was rough because one, I didn't know what I was doing. I don't think most men do know what they're doing in the beginning of marriage,
Nobody does.
but when they have an example, it is a little easier, in my opinion. I would think. Um, I just it was really hard because and then a lot of anxiety and stress comes with that because it's like, man, she's expecting me to be this hero or perfect husband, and I don't know what a husband really looks like. I'm not familiar with really seeing that. You know what I mean? Or like because of how I grew up, so I got to kind of figure it out, and I'm still figuring it out after 4 years. I'm not perfect. I'm still growing, and I think I've gotten better in a lot of areas. But for someone who was a loner and enjoyed being by themselves, I think once you get with someone else, that idea of singleness and being by yourself kind of goes away, and you got to kind of consider the other person. And it is still hard sometimes, but I think I've gotten better over the years. But yeah, it takes time to work through all that stuff.
I think another thing that I'm I guess realizing now on year 4 and maybe halfway through year 3 it started to really dawn on me, I guess, um is really the ministry of marriage. What part of it is the ministry and how it becomes a ministry? And me and Kip, I mean, we've talked about this many times, but I think it's become more clear to us now in year 4. It's sort of like a light bulb went off that marriage is a ministry, and your marriage is your first ministry. Because if you really think about, if you compare your marriage, not compare, but if you sort of put your marriage in the eyes of the way you see the gospel, the way that you see God and his children, if you look at your marriage that way, right? So when I made vows to this person for the rest of my life, I made vows to do this, to do that, to do this, to do that, to love them through this, to love them through that. And I think the thing that I had to realize very early on is that you can't want to leave every time something goes wrong. You can't want to leave every time you see a flaw. And I think that I'm really starting to realize that the better our marriage is, the better the world can see what it means to love unconditionally the way that Jesus loves us. So if I can love you through your flaws, and I can forgive you when you make mistakes, and I can be there for you at your lowest moments, then I can say, I am loving you the way that Jesus loves us. I am putting flaws aside, not actually putting them aside, but actually accepting them. This is an issue. This is something I have to love you through, and have the patience to be by your side as this thing, as we sort of overcome this thing. And we have to really think about it the way that Jesus loves us. Like, if Jesus didn't leave, then when, we didn't deserve to be loved. I mean, think of it that way. When was the last time you felt like, man, like I messed up? Jesus didn't, be like, all right, well, I'm done with you then, because you tripping. You really tripping right now. So I'm actually really good on you. And that's the way we can't be with our spouse either. We have to think about it. If God didn't leave, then you shouldn't leave. If God forgave, then you forgive. You know what I mean? It's a mirror.
Exactly. And I feel like it takes a mature person to be with somebody like that because when you're, I guess I would say, when you're immature and you're still growing, like, and you haven't fully developed on your own, it's a lot to take on being with someone and take on the role of, I'm going to love you through all these things. That's why early in the beginning of marriage, it is hard, I think, for women and men to accept flaws in their partner, like, because it's like, man, because like, again, when you're dating, you have that representative. They don't see the real you, and the real you with the addictions, the real you with the problems, the real issues with you may have anxiety or depression. All those things can affect your marriage in some way, but they don't see all that. They only see the representative, the person that you are allowing them to see. Because I want to show the best me, because I want this person. I want to be with this person. I want to love this person. I don't want them to see me in my worst point, because if I do that, they're going to disqualify me, and I have to find someone else to be with. So I think that when you get into marriage, it is challenging because we are all imperfect. We are all imperfect. We all have problems. We all have flaws. So I think it's a beautiful thing to try, especially for you new married people. If you guys are listening, I would say in the beginning, please just try to like read your Bible and look at how God loves us. If you look at that and see, like, man, I just messed up again, or oh, I just, if you struggle with drinking or smoking or something like that, like, oh man, I shouldn't have drunk or smoke, whatever. But I mean, even through that, I mean, God still loves you. You have to have that same mentality in marriage. Man, my wife, she just talked crazy to me, or my husband, he just talked crazy to me. I mean, I don't want to deal with this. I want to leave and go back with my parents or something like that. It was like you took a vow, you're married now. It's like, all right, I'm gonna stick with this person because we're gonna figure this out together. We're gonna communicate better. We're gonna be like, all right, you don't talk to me like that, or all right, oh, it's just vice versa. We work through it because we love each other. And I think that it takes maturity. And this is why I think that if you are still developing, if you're still developing and you're still maturing, I would say focus on yourself, focus on the issues that you may have, that you have, that you may not want to be in your marriage, and work through those things before you say I do. Because I think, because they're going to come into marriage. I mean, marriage, I realize, is a mirror. I mean, they expose who you really are on both sides. The Bible talks about when you become married, you become one. So they're gonna see right through you, and you're gonna see right through them. So even if you don't like what you see, it's gonna be there. So I think that it's very important to really get yourself and get your house in order for yourself. If that means go to therapy, that means have some time with your pastor to talk, things you need to work on to get better, to be the most prepared if you can for that woman or for that man. Because I mean, it's best to deal with those things before you include someone in your life. I did want to touch on, like, I guess, love languages. That's another thing, I guess, that in the beginning of marriage, most people probably don't really know about, or I didn't. I could say I didn't know about it either. I didn't really know what love languages was. That's something that we had to do some research on. And I think everyone has their love languages, the way they accept love, the way they dish it out. And I learned that mostly, if you what you dish out is typically what you want in return. You know what I mean? And that may not always be the case for your partner. Like, you may dish out, let's see, I don't know, affirmation or something, or you want, dish out quality time, but your partner is like, really, quality time isn't really my thing. So you dish out what you expect back. But what do you think about that?
I think for us, well, first of all, we had to understand what our love languages were. And then I think realizing the do's and don'ts of them. So like your love language is words of affirmation. So not having a conversation about the way that you receive love could sometimes leave you feeling unwanted if I'm not giving you specifically the way that you receive it, right? So, like, your love language, like I said, is words of affirmation. So, you were giving me words of affirmation. Like, this is what I like. So, maybe she likes it. And no, that's not my love language. So, my love language is quality time. I like to be in your presence. I like to have quality time where I feel like we're connecting. Sometimes that's watching a movie. Sometimes I want to go deeper. Sometimes I want it to be different where we're actually connecting on a different level. So like I can say, well, I spent time with you. You don't feel loved. And you may be like, well, no, that's not my love language. That's not how I receive it. So I think being able to speak each other's language instead of loving you the way that I want to be loved, because we're different people. We see everything differently. We have different expectations. And I want to say this, like, I think that in the last few years or so, even before we got married, like I remember telling uh I remember telling someone that I was going to get married. And we had set a date and everything, and then we decided to change that, and we got married sooner than we were going to get married. And I remember telling someone that I was going to get married, and I remember they looked me in my face and they said, "That's the worst thing that you're going to do, and I'm telling you right now, you're going to regret it." They looked me in my face. They said that to me. Not, nobody relate. They said that to me. They said marriage is another job and it's a headache that you don't want. And the funny thing about that is, I feel like we have to bring back how beautiful marriage is. We have to spread the word about the positivity and the benefits of marriage. Like, we have to spread the word about how beautiful it is, the companionship, all the benefits of it. We have to be putting that out instead of the negativity, because negativity comes with anything, but we have to make marriage good again. Like, we have to make it sexy again. We have to make it fun again. We have to make it successful again. So anybody that asks me, like, and we're only on year 4, so there's a lot more to venture through. But anybody that asks me, like, I'm gonna tell them, like, it's beautiful. It's tough, but it's beautiful. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I think was frustrating for us, specifically me, when we first got married, when people would give us advice, they would just be like, well, marriage is hard, marriage is tough, it's really hard. But if I could give one piece of advice to anybody who is married, whether you've been married for 6 days or 60 years, share your experiences. You don't have to go all the way into detail. You don't have to get down to the nitty gritty, but share your experiences, because there are people out there. And if you say, who want to be married, and if you just say marriage is hard, that doesn't help. It actually may stray people away from marriage. Like, give them the real, be honest. Marriage is hard because you have to compromise. Marriage is hard because you have to change. Marriage is hard because you have to mature. Marriage is hard because you have to be a better person while trying to figure out your person. Marriage is hard for a lot of reasons, but we have to be more transparent in what that actually looks like, especially for young people. I mean, we were in our early 20s I was in my early 20s, and for you to say marriage is hard,
I was 25. That's the early
that's
20s.
like the middle. That's like the middle. I was a young thing. But, like, be
Yeah,
honest
you was
about
23. I was 25.
right. And be honest about it. What is it that makes it so complex? What is it that makes it difficult? And share your experiences, share.
Right. Yeah, of course. I think that you mentioned something else I wanted to hit on. I think it was the fact of, oh man, I'm having the crap, what was the last thing you said?
I was just talking about, like, bringing back the positivity about marriage and
Oh,
then
well, I remember. I'm sorry. I don't know why I keep forgetting things in this episode. But you mentioned that people was kind of stray away and say, "Oh, yeah, marriage is bad. Marriage is hard. Don't do it," or "Don't do this. Don't do that." But I think that marriage is a beautiful thing. I mean, you have two people coming together and building a life, creating a family, creating generations because of your connection with a person. I mean, that's a God given gift, and I think because of uh, bad advice or bad upbringing and bad experiences, people have kind of made marriage to be, and also the way society sees relationships too, have made marriage to be this negative thing where, oh, it's just too many rules. You can't really express yourself if you're not satisfied in this area. You got to go out and do this. I mean, it's about loving you, making sure you're taken care of. But marriage is the most important thing in my mind about, and that I think marriage is the fact that it's a selfless lifestyle of giving yourself to your partner in any way, and that's extremely hard for I think everybody because I think we are naturally selfish. You know what I mean? Naturally, we want to do what's best for us. Naturally, we want what we want, and that's why we need God to kind of guide us and lead us in how to do marriage because he created it. He knows the ins and outs of it. He's engineered it. He knows how it works. So when we try to do this thing on our own, I think that we kind of taint it and we kind of put it and make it our image of what marriage is. And I don't think that's wise because that's when a lot of problems come up. That's when a lot of selfishness comes in because what I want comes first, but marriage is giving yourself. Like if you think about Jesus, we compare marriage to what Jesus did. He gave himself as a sacrifice for us. And men have to do that same thing for their wives, and vice versa, the wife for the man, and certain things as well. So I think I think that marriage is a pretty great, awesome thing. But it is hard though. It's hard to deal with things that are uncomfortable, but it's a beautiful thing because I think the pros outweigh the cons, in my opinion. What do you think?
I agree. And I would say this, like, don't wait until everything is falling apart to go to therapy. Go to therapy even before, like, as soon as you well, even while you're dating, go to therapy. You don't have to go to couples therapy if you don't want to, but I think that individual therapy, you need that if you're planning on marrying somebody, and even if you're not, it's necessary. Go to couples counseling when you get engaged before you get married, and continue to go to counseling while you are married, especially in those early phases. Like, therapy was really instrumental for us because we needed tools that we just didn't have at the time. We One of our roughest patches in our marriage was quarantine. And I think that that really pushed us over the edge to be like, all right, we got to talk to somebody. And it was one of the best decisions that we ever made to consistently make it a thing. And I think we did wait too long at that particular time to go, but don't wait until things are terrible or things are falling completely apart. Go to therapy when things are good so that you can find out ways to keep them good. But then also to prepare for when things are bad, because marriage is seasons, just like the seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. Your marriage is also going to go through those seasons. There may be seasons where you want to fight, like square up, because we can fight right now. Like, let's take it outside. There are also seasons where you can't keep your hands off each other. There are seasons where you cry together, seasons where you laugh together, seasons where you become closer because life is beating you down. There's seasons, so you have to take the good with the bad, and you just have to stick together through it. And continue to go to therapy because it is necessary. It is actually one of the best decisions that we made in our marriage, was to sit with someone, tell them what we felt, and they helped us to evaluate and really go to the root of where those feelings were, and basically just how to keep it together. I think it was very instrumental.
Right, exactly. I mean, therapy is a huge plus, and it'll definitely navigate you in the right direction, and also keep God in the center. I mean, that's not always easy, but I mean, we have to do it to have the strongest marriage possible, in my opinion.
It's the key to being successful. And I want to touch on this really quickly. I'm going to be real quick. On social media, all the time I see people saying, I can't wait to get married. I watch a TV show called Married at First Sight, and they do these little interviews, and they're like, well, why do you want to be married? I want someone to travel the world with. I want a companion. I want somebody to come home to. And that's all great. But really, really search yourself and understand why you want to be married. Marriage is not a destination, it is completely a journey. So, all the good things don't come on the day you get married. And of course, the wedding is a beautiful event, but it is a journey. So, don't feel like, oh, I can't wait to get married. I can't wait to get married. Marriage itself, getting married, is not the prize, it's the journey and the ministry of creating a beautiful thing out of two very imperfect people. That is the prize in marriage. And that does not happen right away. I heard an interview with I think it was Will and Jada, and I think they said they had been together for over 20 years, and the person that was interviewing with them was like, "Oh, that's nothing. Y'all don't even know each other yet." And he was baffled by that. He was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, y'all only been together 20 years. Y'all don't even know each other yet." And if you really think about it, it is a continuous journey of getting to know this person as they change. Like, it's a long journey, and you want it to be a long journey. Think of it that way. No matter what happens, I'm going through this way. No matter what happens, I'm going to see it this way. I'm going to find the positivity, and I'm going to create something good out of this. So bring back the fun in marriage. Bring back the sexy in marriage. Bring back the ministry of marriage.
Yeah, so we want you guys to comment and leave, a like. And what do you think about this topic? Let's hear about it. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Candid Couch. This was a great conversation.
It was. I enjoyed
I
this.
really enjoyed this as well. I hope some of you people who just got married, or even people who've been married, and enjoyed this. And leave some comments, guys. Like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at the Candid Couch Podcast. Looking forward to hearing some feedback from you guys, and we'll be putting some more content out very soon. So have a good one.
All right. We'll see you guys next week.